Hello, today I'm back with a versus video. This time it'll be for two thrash metal classics, and those are Spraying the Disease by Anthrax and Frolic Through the Park by Death Angel. So yeah, these are the sophomore albums from these bands. With Spraying the Disease, this is the band's first album with Joey Belladonna. With Frolic Through the Park, something you notice with that album is that the band experimented a bit more. It's not as thrashy or as thrash leaning or thrash focused as the previous album, The Ultraviolence. But let's first talk about this album right here, Spraying the Disease, which I'd say is one of the band's best, and honestly, pretty much all killer, no filler, not a single weak track on it. Sure, you could say that there are songs stronger than others, which you could say about really any album, but yeah, definitely a great introduction to the Joey era. Of course, he would come back in the 2010s, but yeah, really great album. I mean, Joey's vocals on here are especially really good. Definitely one of the highlights of the album. I mean, I really dig his vocals in songs such as AIR, Armed and Dangerous, and Gung Ho. But if I were to narrow down some of my favorites on here, they'd probably be Lone Justice, Madhouse, which of course the big song on here and also had a music video. The Enemy, which is growing to be maybe one of my favorite Anthrax songs, kind of an underrated song, I'd say. Armed and Dangerous, Gung Ho. I mean, Gung Ho probably being a contender for maybe being their fastest or most thrashy song. Definitely a killer way to close off the album, too. And of course, AIR is also a pretty killer way to open up the album. Maybe one of the thrashiest or fastest songs on here. I mean, AIR, definitely a banger for sure. But yeah, you really can't go wrong with any of the songs on here. Yeah, all around, really great album and definitely a classic for sure. Now let's talk about this album right here, Frolic Through the Park by Death Angel. As I mentioned earlier, the band experimented a bit more with this one. It's again not as thrashy as the previous album, but you do still have the thrashy element in the band in this album. I mean, you have your thrashy moments like Third Floor and Guilty of Innocence and Mind Rape, but you also have your more mid-tempo or not as thrashy moments like Open Up and Confused and Cold Gin. But yeah, I actually dig the somewhat variety that you get in this album. A bit more varied, a bit more variation compared to the previous album, which makes this album for a more interesting listen. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ultraviolence is definitely great. I'd say probably one of the band's best, but I might like this album a bit more, which might be controversial to say depending on who you ask, but I don't know. I personally dig this album. I think it is one of the band's best. And I also really dig Mark's vocals in this album too, especially in songs like Third Floor and Open Up. But yeah, some of my favorites on here: Third Floor, Road Mutants, Bored, which is the big song on here, Confused, Open Up. But yeah, again, those are some of my favorites. Now, with saying all that, the production could have been a bit better. I'd say the production is one of the weaker aspects of the album. But with saying that, the production doesn't really harm my enjoyment of the album either. Another thing I do want to say is that there's maybe one or two songs on here that I would maybe consider somewhat kind of filler, but that's really it though. Because still at the end of the day, I would consider this album definitely one of the band's best. So yeah, if I had to choose which album I like more for this video, I'm going to have to go with probably Spraying the Disease by Anthrax. Frolic Through the Park is definitely great, but I definitely like this album a bit more. This album, to me, really has no filler, which I can't really say for Frolic Through the Park. And I also think this album, I personally return to this album a bit more. I think this album has more replay value, and I also think this album probably has overall stronger deep cuts or stronger lesser known songs, however you want to put it. But yeah, again, gonna have to go with Spraying the Disease by Anthrax. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on my choice. Let me know what album you would choose and why, and let me know some of your favorite or least favorite songs off of these albums and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and like, subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.